Oscar Manuel Alejandro Soto. I am a university student from the University of Iberoamericana León. I'm currently in the seventh semester. I am studying international business and logistics. And today I will be talking about my class, Treaties and Agreements, taught by Jose Ramon Alvarez Gonzalez. Now, guys, before we can even start talking about treaties or the treaty that I will be talking about between Mexico and Central America, we first need to talk about globalization. So, what's globalization, guys? What is globalization? Globalization is the process of interaction and integration among people, companies, and governments of different nations. Globalization is not something new. Globalization has been around for thousands of years. One good example of this is the famed Silk Road of China that connected Central Asia to Europe. In the recent few decades, we have grown economically because of new informational technology that has been able to help us improve our way of living and our standards. Being able to move products and people faster and easier throughout the whole world. The current wave of globalization that we have been living right now since the past 2 decades can be partly due because after the Second World War, many governments have adopted free market economic systems. This vastly increased their productivity and created new opportunities for international trade and investments. Governments have also negotiated dramatic reductions in barriers to commerce and have established international agreements to promote trade in goods, service, and investment. Taking advantage of new opportunities in foreign markets, corporations have built foreign factories, established production and marketing arrangements with foreign partners. Thus, this defying the feature of globalization. Therefore, is an international industrial and financial business structure. Globalization is fantastic for economies, especially for those countries that are now growing. Globalization has been hitting a hard turn for the past few months due to the coronavirus. We can see now that we are also very vulnerable. We need to find new ways to improve globalization, to help us trade easier, to make it safer for us to be able to move from one point to another without worrying about any type of viruses or any other circumstances. Now, talking about globalization has helped us understand how we got from this point and how we can move to a new point in the future. How can we improve ourselves as humans, as a species? We can't continue talking about globalization without mentioning the new treaties, new agreements signed after World War II. Why are treaties so important nowadays? What are treaties, guys? Treaties are a binding formal agreement, contract, or other written instruments that establish obligations between two or more subjects of international law, primarily states and international organizations. Now, nations have used treaties in order to formalize agreements and foreign policies with one another. Treaties have been used for many different international issues, such as peace, trade, land disputes, human rights, and immigration. Treaties are very important to us, especially the free trade agreements that are signed between two nations or even more. Now, these type of treaties are extremely important because it helps one nation that is underdeveloped become a developed nation within a few decades. There is one treaty that's very important to me that I will be talking about, which is Mexico and Central America. To talk about the Central America and Mexico Treaty, we first need to talk about its history. Now, in 2001, this treaty took an effect after 8 years of negotiations between Central America nations like Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, and with Mexico. Now, this treaty, 50% of the trade flows will be liberalized at the outset, while duties on industrial goods will be gradually lifted over the next 12 years. Now, the Mexico Northern Triangle Free Trade Agreement, the M&T FTA, represents to the Northern Triangle a new set of disciplines on issues of market access, removal of duties, and on tariff barriers. This treaty's objectives were to integrate the small economies of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala to Mexico's economy. During the early 90s, there was a trend in Central America and South America where they were starting to do free trade agreements more often. Now, in 1995 and 1998, Mexico had signed with Costa Rica and Nicaragua free trade deals. So this helped integrate Central America with Mexico even more. Now, the Northern Trade Agreement with Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador had a few revisions. They called it Tuxtla Acts and Declarations. There were 3 acts between 1996 and 1998, and this helped more revise the agreements with said countries. Now, this is where we kick in the few agreements up till 2011, where the Northern Triangle now integrates Costa Rica. Now, this new agreement is now called Free Trade Agreement with Central America and Mexico, which the countries now include Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. It was signed on 22nd of November 2011. Mexico and Guatemala, they signed a treaty on September 1st, 2013. Costa Rica on the 1st of July, with Honduras on the 1st of January, El Salvador on the 1st of September, and Nicaragua on the 1st of September 2012. Costa Rica and Honduras and Guatemala would sign in 2013. Now, we are going to now start to look at country analysis one by one. We'll first start with Mexico. Mexico is the largest country of the countries in the Treaty of Central America. Its surface area is close to 2 million square kilometers. Population is above 114 million people. And its PIB annually is close to $2 trillion, $1.6 trillion. And PIB per capita is around 15,100 US dollars annually. Mexico divides its economic sectors with agriculture at 3.9%, industry at 32.8%, and services at 63.4%. This employment rate is 5.10%, inflation at 3.50%, and they export around $336.3 billion, and they import $341.9 billion in goods. We're now going to talk about Guatemala, Mexico's next door neighbor. Guatemala has a surface area of only roughly 109,000 square kilometers. It has the population of 17,263 people. Its PIB is 74.46 billion US dollars. Its PIB per capita is only 4,540 $49 with 1 cent. Now, Guatemala separates its sectors with agriculture in 13.4%, industrial in 23.9%, and services in 54.6%. Guatemala's unemployment rate is 2.5%. Their inflation is 3.41%. They export $11.2 billion and they import $19.9 billion in materials. Now, the next country we'll be talking about is Honduras. Its surface area is 112,000 square kilometers, roughly. Its population is very low, 9.5 million. Its PIP is only 23.9 billion US dollars. PIP per capita is $2,500 with 11 cents. Now, the sectors are separated between agriculture with 13.8%, industrial with 28.4%, services with 57.8%. Now, its unemployment rate is pretty high with 5.7% of the population, and its inflation is 4.08%. Now, they have exported $7.7 billion, roughly around, in materials, and they have imported $10.692 billion in materials and products. The next country we'll be talking about is El Salvador. It's the smallest country of the five with only 21,042 square kilometers. It has a population of 6.4 million, and it has a PIP of $26 billion, and it has a PIP per capita of $4,058 annually. Now, El Salvador separates its sectors with agriculture at 10.6%, industrial at 24.6%, and services at 64.8%. Now, unemployment rate is very high with a 6.3% of Salvadorians being unemployed. Inflation is very low of 0.13%, and they have exported roughly $5.9 billion in materials, and they have imported around $12 billion in materials and merchandise. The fourth country we'll be talking about is Nicaragua, with a surface area of roughly almost 130,000 square kilometers. It has a population of 6.4 million, and its PIB is 13.12 billion US dollars. Now, their PIB per capita is only $2,028.89. Nicaragua separates its sectors with agriculture at 15.5%, industrial at 24.4%, and services at 50.8%. Now, its unemployment rate is fairly high, with 9.20% of Nicaraguans being unemployed. And its inflation is roughly high with 6.13%. Now, they have exported roughly around $6.7 billion in materials, and they have imported $7.13 billion in materials and products. Now, the final country I will be talking about is Costa Rica. It is the second smallest country of the five, with an surface area of 51,100 square kilometers. It has the smallest population with 4.6 million people. Its PIP is $54.47 billion. They do have one of the highest, second to Mexico, in PIB per capita, with $11,500 annually. Now, they separate their sectors with agriculture having 6.4%, industrial with 22.1%, and services with 71.5%. Now, their unemployment rate is fairly high with 6% of Costa Ricans unemployed. Now, their inflation is 5.30%, and they have exported around $10.7 billion, and they have imported 15.08 billion US dollars. Now, as we can see here on this data table here, that Mexico is the largest and has the most largest economy out of the six countries in Central America. Now, this treaty is going to help most of these countries improve their way of life and improve their exportations. They'll be able to have a more developed country in terms of internationally with other countries. So now we can now continue, guys, to talking about the actual treaty. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how many chapters the treaty has and some of its interesting facts. So let's get started. The FTA with Central America has allowed an increase and facilitate trade in the region. Now, in 2016, trade with Central America represented 21% of Mexico's trade with Latin America and the Caribbean. In addition, almost a quarter of Mexican exports and 17% of imports made by Mexico in the region come from Central America. This treaty is composed with 21 chapters, 22.8 articles, and 3 annexes. Now, this treaty is combined with the treaties with Mexico, with the treaties of free trade agreement with Nicaragua and the free trade agreement with Costa Rica, which were signed in 1995 and 1998, respectively. Now, the free trade agreement between Mexico and Central America is based on because we have the northern trade agreement with El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, the Northern Triangle Agreement. Now, all of this has helped Mexico widely because they have been able to export exponentially to Central America and able to gain more money. Now, Mexico exports a lot of suits, medicines. They deposit oils, barrels. They also extract a lot of type of milk, creams. They export a lot of aguacates, bananas, and they also export to a lot of them books, paper, toilet paper, and such similar to those. Now they also export a lot of boxes and recipients. They export onions, vegetables. Mexico imports several products from Central America, such as woven fabrics, coconuts, preparations for products for preparation like soups, stews, and broths. We import a lot of bakery, pastries, and cookie products. We import several plastic plates, plastic products, manufactured plastic products, or even a few car parts. We also import refrigerators, freezers, and other materials related to those. And we also import a lot of oils like palm oils, coconut oil, palm kernel, or babasa oils. We also import cane and beet sugar. And we import batteries and electric batteries. So we're going to talk about rules of origin here in the treaty. Now, this treaty states that if one country imports a product from the other and we are able to find out what product that is from, if it's not from the country of origin, for example, if I import a product from Costa Rica and that product's material was produced in El Salvador, there I can see that it's part of the treaty with Mexico in Central America, so I won't have to pay that many taxes of importation. Okay, we get the benefits of not paying that many taxes. Now, if that material would be from another country, let's say Argentina or from China, that we would import it from Costa Rica and that company would have imported that product from China, then there we would have to pay certain taxes of importation. Now we'll be talking about the future of Central America and this treaty. Now, this treaty seems to be growing with more countries in Central America being added to in the near future. Mexico has signed agreement in 2016 with Panama, separate from this Central America with Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. I do believe that Panama will soon be uniting with the rest of Central America, with Nicaragua, Costa Rica, to become one whole united. That way, it will be easier, quicker for all of Central America to be able to trade and to invest in one another. What have I learned this past summer classes with treaties? I've learned a lot. I've learned that treaties are extremely important to be able to have a more sufficient and easier way to trade with one another. How rules of origin can help us, not pay as many taxes if we're going to import or export to another country. I've learned so many in this past few weeks about treaties, and I'm extremely happy that I've been able to learn a lot about Mexico's treaties and agreements with other countries such as the UE, such as Iceland, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. I've learned that they have the new TEMEC treaty with the United States and Canada. I've learned so much in the past 6 weeks that I just can't express how I feel. This university is great, and I am enjoying every moment of it. So this class treaty, I will highly recommend it to anyone who's going to enter the University Iberoamericana in the future. And please look for this teacher, Jose Ramon Alvarez. He's excellent. And thank you guys for watching my video. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys soon.